It's Dina and Melba Pearson on Legal AF, breaking down the developments in the law. And the latest issue that we're talking about is the Department of Defense changing the names on military ships. Specifically, they announced that they are removing the name of Harvey Milk on one of their battleships. And they said that they intentionally did this announcement during Pride Month. As you know, we've just started Pride Month on June 1st. I thought that was particularly mean, for better word, to say that you were doing it during Pride Month. I just came back from the California Democratic Convention. I'm a delegate. I have my California Proud sticker. And make no mistake, the LGBTQ community is under attack in a way we have not seen in years. Definitely by the right, of course, them campaigning on demonizing trans children. But also, I think that Democrats are afraid of speaking up for our LGBTQ community. And there was a speech by Governor Tim Walz during the convention where he said, we cannot be afraid as a party. Otherwise, we are losing sight of who we are as a party. And I have not seen enough in the news outrage, even there's quite a bit of Democratic leaders that are outraged by this and are speaking up. But I don't think enough, because with everything Trump does, he goes after the most vulnerable, the ones that are easiest to right? Or demonize. But if you think that that's going to be the end of it with this authoritarian regime, it is just the beginning. But also, frankly, I personally think if we're not willing to stand up for the LGBT community, maybe we should get out of politics, because what point is there if we don't stand up for people like this? So this attack right now by taking off the names, and it's not just Harvey Milk, there's other civil rights leaders and activists. We're going to go into all of them that they're taking off the names. It's really consistent with what they're doing all along, trying to remove, in their words, DEI, but really trying to remove the contributions to our society of people of color, of women, of members of the LGBTQ community. That's what this is about. It's about trying to make them invisible, because then it's easier to dehumanize a group if you have taken away who they are. So this may seem like just a renaming of a ship, but it is definitely much more than that. And for those of you who don't know Harvey Milk, he served in the Navy. That's why there was even a connection with him on the ship. He served in combat during the Korean War, and he was discharged, a less than honorable discharge, in 1955 after questions were raised about his sexual orientation. So specifically, as part of his orientation, and that's in part, of course, why I think he was then celebrated later in these years. He was the first openly gay man to be elected to office in the United States. He was elected to the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco in 1977, considered one of the leading gay activists of all time. And he was assassinated a year after he was elected. And the Department of Defense choosing intentionally to remove his name, to remove what he means to so many from this ship during this beginning of this Pride Month. So let's get into that, Melba. And also maybe you could speak to, he's just one of many civil rights people that they are trying to take down from their honor on these ships.
Yeah. So first off, this is part of a broader pattern. So we found out a few months ago that, and it's sort of like, can't even believe that this has only been 6 months and all of this foolishness has occurred. But anyway, we first found out that the Department of Defense was requesting or ordering all of the libraries to remove books that had any reference to people of color, people from marginalized communities. So including like Jackie Robinson or, other critical autobiographies and things like that. He's allowing, Mein Kampf to sit in the library, but taking out anything that was, would show opposing point of view, clearly, something that's not anti-Semitic. Interesting for an administration that claims to care so much about anti-Semitism, but be that as it may. So first we had that, and now it's about the stripping the names from the ships. So as we know, and as you mentioned, Dina, Harvey Milk was a veteran. He served during the Korean War from 1951 to 1955. So it's not like he rolled through for 30 seconds. He was actually in the war for 4 years fighting. So he earned his spot on that ship. Let's be for his name to be on that ship. Let's be very clear. But he's not the only one. Also, according to a memo that was someone was familiar with and basically leaked it, basically the list includes Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American Supreme Court justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, another Supreme Court justice who is a feminist icon, Harriet Tubman, who freed so many people from slavery and was instrumental in the Underground Railroad, removing her name off of a ship. Lucy Stone, who was a prominent abolitionist and suffragist. Medgar Evers, who was a civil rights leader assassinated by the Ku Klux Klan, taking his name off of a ship. Cesar Chavez, who was a labor leader and helped, organize farm workers and did so much around labor issues. Also, Dolores Huerta, who is another labor leader. So not only are these predominantly Black and brown people that he's removing, but he's removing folks who have contributed so much to everything from jurisprudence in this country to unions to making sure that people have safe working conditions to making sure people weren't in slavery. Like the level of cruelty is just insane. And people voted for this. Because let's not get twisted. He made it when he talked about anti-DEI and all of that. That's what he was talking about. I guess some people didn't think when he said anti-DEI that meant white women or that meant, people from the LGBTQ community. But yeah, it did. And this is the aftermath. This is the wake of all of that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people understood it and still wanted to vote for it. The only thing that gives me hope is they're not the majority. We just need to get our act together and get our majority out to vote and can give them an alternative. We can't just bash on him. We had to give him an alternative that brings people to the polls. But Thurgood Marshall, as you mentioned, was one of the people. And let's get into him because I think this is a very good example of the levels that they are going, because he was, as you said, he was the very first African-American appointed Supreme Court justice. But before that, you know something about this as a lawyer with the NCAAP. He was the lead lawyer for the NCAAP, and he argued the Brown versus Board of Education case in front of the Supreme Court before he was named to the Supreme Court. That is perhaps one of the most famous Supreme Court decisions ever. Many of people, I'm sure, on Legal AF here have heard of it. And it is the one that decided you cannot have separate but equal under the law, which basically ended segregation. So here you have somebody, his attack, Trump's attack on the DOD. I mean, there were so many people like you talked about, like pre-Civil War and, so many people that did well. Thurgood Marshall was not that long ago. And his contribution of basically helping end segregation in this country. And then you are saying he doesn't deserve to be honored. That's all this is, right? We name airports after presidents. We name street signs after activist leaders and presidents. It's just one of the things we do, right? So you're really saying that I think this person contributed in a way to this country that we want to honor them. The fact that you are taking such a drastic move to take away their name, because there are new ships that are built all the time that need to be named all the time. If they want to put Steve Bannon's name on the ship or whatever, they could do that, right? But they're not. They're
Don't give them any ideas. Don't give them any ideas, because I could totally see that happening.
Right? Oh my gosh. Although they would fight about it. Would it be Elon Musk or Steve Bannon? Thankfully, there's some MAGA infighting going on. But the fact is that when they are stripping a name, the intention behind taking away somebody's honor. You are really clearly saying their contribution should not be honored, which means that his contribution to ending segregation should not be honored. This, is I'm so glad we're delving into this issue, because his actions can't just be seen as noise. His actions, this is how you begin, like I said in the beginning, when you start to dehumanize, when you start to take away and silence and cover up and bury the contributions, it is much easier to say, well, that group didn't contribute anything, did they? Well, maybe they shouldn't have rights, because what's the point, right? And that's
why are they here? Yeah.
And that's where it all goes. So thanks, I'm so glad we got a chance to talk about this, Melba. If you haven't already subscribed, Legal AF, subscribe. Melba and I are trying to stay on top of all these cases, the legal ones that are so important for our everyday lives, the perhaps more cultural decisions that are also just as important for our everyday lives. We are going to walk and chew gum at the same time. We're going to hold Trump accountable. We are going to help inform people so that way we can then inform our neighbors, our friends, our family, and not let the Fox News of the world define the narrative, because what they are doing here with these ships is hateful. It is anti-American. And we here at Legal AF are going to point that out. So free subscribe if you haven't already.
And also make sure this is a whole effort from the work of the NAACP to, all of the other organizations and organizers and activists that did all of this work to get us where we are today as a country. By erasing their names off of the ships is another way of rewriting history. So don't let them rewrite history. And secondly, make sure you know and understand history. Like all the folks that we named off, do a little Google research, learn a little bit more about their contributions and teach someone else about it, right? I'm not saying you got to do a whole course on it, but just, share with your friends, share with your loved ones, share with your kids, because these historic contributions are not being talked about enough. And again, as we get further and further away from the days of enslavement, as we get further and further away of the days of the first civil rights movement, it's easy for it to fade and just be like, oh yeah, that was something that happened like so long ago. It's really not that long ago. And This is critical history that we can't forget, or else we'll be doomed to repeat.
Very well said. Be sure to free subscribe. So help us be able to stay on top of this.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.